what was the impetus for the trip to Europe, and who did you go with?
It was actually First Defense. They're a nonprofit, local nonprofit that represent people at the police station. It was their fact-finding mission. I kind of rode their coattails. And the impetus was the realization that the European Union, the Constitutional Court of the European Union, decided 3 years ago that the right to counsel in their law means right to counsel at all times at the police station as well. And they started funding, the various countries started trying to figure out ways to fund the right to counsel at the police station. So we actually went to France. And France, prior to this European Union Constitutional Court's ruling, didn't have a right to counsel at the police station. Okay. They set up a situation so that within 2 hours, every arrestee has an attorney at the police station with them so that they can advise them on their rights. And on the other hand, there was Britain, who has had this right for 30 years, and they have a much even more, because it's gone for 3 years, a more sophisticated way that they ensure every arrestee has an attorney at their side at the police station within 45 minutes. And
45 minutes?
And it's
do they just have a team of attorneys at the police station on call, or how does that work?
So it's a little different in every country, and there's a variety, which means there's a variety of ways it can be done here. You have to start off with the predicate that the legal systems are very different in Europe than they are here. The situation where you have state attorneys, prosecutors who only work for the government, and public defenders, defense attorneys who only work for the government, is actually really unique to this country. It's a lot different in other countries. You have people who are basically private attorneys who do both, or you have private attorneys who do prosecution and other private work, or it's very different. But the way it's funded in France...
You have private attorneys that do both defense and prosecution depending on the case?
Yeah.
How does that even... That seems like a complex life to live.
Well, but in many ways, it provides a different perspective, and it would probably lead to more justice because people aren't getting entrenched in their ways of thinking. They're not jaded and cynical. It's not always about us against them.
No, is that type of practice prohibited here in Cook County and the state of Illinois or in the United States in any way? Or?
That's a whole nother story. There was actually a history of some private prosecutions on the federal level, but then the thinking here was that actually encouraged people to falsely prosecute because people would get paid based on their success rate.
I see.
So there's arguments for and against something like that. In terms of Europe, though, the way it was funded in France is essentially through the bar, their bar association, collecting fees from their members and collecting some fees from the government and using interest off of essentially what would be their trust fund accounts. In terms of Britain, it's actually funded directly from the government, so it's taxes. It's different, though. Britain developed a very interesting system where they allow associates, non-attorneys, people who are trained just to do police station visits, working under the attorneys to do the police station visits. So the way they pull it off in Britain is they actually have a bunch of ex-law enforcement who go through a training, pass a test. They're not lawyers, but they're allowed to give legal advice at the police station at obviously a much cheaper rate than what a lawyer would.
Huh.
And so they spread that out throughout the country. They work under lawyers, or what's called either a solicitor or a barrister, mostly solicitors.
That seems like a kind of situation, if that here in Chicago, that they would run you out of the police station if you're not an attorney trying to give someone legal advice.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of differences there than here. Here in Chicago, they would run you out of the police station. Here in Chicago, they are not going to call the lawyers for you like the police do in England. Here in Chicago, in this country, you're entitled to effective assistance counsel, but only at certain stages. You're allowed to have a lawyer at a police station, but you're not entitled to a lawyer.
I tell you what, Brendan, let's take a short break. When we come back, I want to get into what your legal rights are if you are arrested and you arrive at the station, and talk about some of the comparisons that you've seen in other systems. We'll be back with more in just a moment.